Welcome to the Passive Income Machine podcast, where we show you how to break free from the grind and achieve real financial freedom in 10 years or less. My name is Ryan D. Lee, and I've helped thousands turn income into cash flow, trade fake money for real assets, and take back control over their time, their wealth, and ultimately their life. Each week, you'll get strategy, tools, and mindset to build your own passive income machine. So my friends, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. All right, my friends, welcome back to the Passive Income Machine podcast. You were on the microphone today with me, Ryan D. Lee, and today we're going to be talking about averages. Now listen, I want you to consider this. You are not average. You are not average, as evidenced by the fact that you're listening to this podcast. But the question that I have for you is, why is your money treated like it's average? Listen, let me give you a little example here. What if I put 10 people in a room and I tell you that the average net worth of those 10 people in the room is $10 million? Now you might think to yourself, wow, Ryan's got a pretty successful room there with a lot of high-powered individuals. Everyone in that room must be crushing it. What that would ultimately mean is, if I took these 10 people and let's say 9 of them had just a net worth of $100,000, but the last person in that room was Elon Musk. Now, I know Elon Musk's net worth is not $100 million, but for the sake of the example, go with me on this. So if out of those 10 people, one of the 10 was Elon Musk with a $100 million net worth, the average in that room would still be $10 million. But what does that actually tell you about anyone in the room? Well, absolutely nothing. It's the illusion of numbers. The math is technically correct, but the inside, well, it's completely wrong. And if that same math is being used to trap you into a retirement system that looks good on paper, but it ultimately fails in reality. I want to break this down for you. Wall Street is obsessed with average. In fact, the entire financial system is obsessed with average. Every piece of a financial plan deals with average people saving an average amount, earning an average return in an average system. And if you approach that average system wanting anything more than average, you're playing the wrong game. Now, if you're completely complacent and comfortable with the idea of working for 40 years, pursuing an average return, and hoping for an average retirement, then number one, you're not listening to this podcast. And number two, that's okay for you. You're just playing a game where the status quo feels good. In fact, inside of this game, if you're winning in this game, it means the average return of the stock market was, let's say it's 8%. And if you're winning in the game, that means your average return over the last 5 to 10 years has been 9%, maybe even 10%. As long as you're beating average by a reasonable number, everyone will point to you and look at you and say you're winning. Now, in this game of averages, if the average return is the same 8% over a 10-year period of time and your average is only 6, then your financial planner is going to work really, really hard to get you back up to the mean, get you back up to the average. But in that same game, average is losing, right? If you look at the statistics, there is a retirement problem. There's a retirement, catastrophe, and that's because everyone is pursuing average. But if you go to your financial advisor, and say, look, I don't want an 8% return, I want a 28%, I want a 30% return, that financial advisor is going to look at you and say, you're crazy. That's too risky. But the real risk is you're playing an average game expecting something different. The average game cannot deliver for you extraordinary returns. This is the entire problem with the traditional system. It's based on a system that the best case scenario is you hit or slightly exceed average. And if that's the game you're playing, I want you to kind of fast forward yourself to the end of this game. Let's say you've accumulated $1 million net worth. Now, back in the day, I think people would point to $1 million net worth and say, man, that dude's a baller. He's killing it, right? Today, $1 million doesn't mean quite as much as it did one day or, not too far ago because of inflation. But here's what I want you to consider. If you're playing an average game and you accumulate $1 million by the time you're 60, what does that actually mean? Like, what does that actually mean for your ability to retire? Well, in the game of retirement planning, your net worth is meaningless. It doesn't matter how much you have in your system. It matters how much income your system can produce for you. And in this game of averages, this is where the game gets even worse. Because the game of averages with an average market return, dealing in a market account that is volatile over time, the most you can take out of your account is 4% of your net worth. To give you the highest probability of not running out of money in retirement, you have to be able to ask yourself a couple of questions. When you get ready to retire, you need to understand how long does your income need to last, right? And if you retire in your 60s, you know for sure you want your income to last you for at least 20, 25, maybe even 30 years. And the other question that you have to ask is, what is a reasonable amount of money you can take out of your account to ensure that you never run out of money? This is people's biggest fear in the game of retirement, is they have a sum of money, a net worth, because they've been playing an average game, and they want to slowly draw that net worth down to zero without running out of time, meaning they don't want to draw their account balance down to zero and still have 10 or 15 healthy years of life after that. So once you come down to the purpose of all long-term savings, you have to realize and understand that the market is volatile. Even though it averages 7, 8, 9%, whatever you want to determine the average is, that average is meaningless once you go to retirement. You can't spend average, you only spend actual. So if one year your account loses 20% like it did, not too long ago, I think in 2022 the market was down like 18, 19% that year. What does that mean for you in that year? Can you take income out of your account in retirement? If you lost money, what would happen if you also took money out of your account to fund your retirement savings or to fund your retirement lifestyle? Well, you'd have a double negative impact. And that double negative impact is the very reason why the most you're encouraged to take out of a traditional retirement account in retirement is 4%. Anything more than 4% massively increases the probability of you running out of money in retirement. So let's do just a little bit of math here. If you want $10,000 a month of retirement income, if that's the number that you want, $120,000 a year, how much net worth do you have to have in order to give you $10,000 a month at the 4% rule? Well, take the desired income, $120,000 a year, divide it by 4%. That's going to tell you need to have a $3 million net worth just to fund a $10,000 a month income. That's a major problem, my friends. This is the problem playing an average game governed by average results, is no one talks about the real problem with all of this is how do you generate an income in retirement? And the 4% rule is the average way to do just that, to generate an average income that will give you the highest average probability of not running out of money until you die. And the problem is most people in their 50s following this average game, they have about $270,000. That's the average net worth, or that's the average retirement account balance of people in their 50s. These are people that are 10, maybe 15 years away from the hope of retiring one day. Now, I just told you that in order to generate $10,000 a month, you're going to need $3 million in net worth. Otherwise, you're risking the probability of running out of money when you're during your retirement, and the average person has $272,000. So winning in this game is not winning; it's just losing and feeling at least accommodated in your loss because everyone else is losing with you. Hey, just jumping in here for 1 second. I really hope you're digging this episode and seeing massive potential for your future. But look, none of this happens without the How to Retire in 10 Years Summit. It's the financial freedom event you absolutely cannot miss this year. We're talking about step-by-step strategies for passive income, financial independence, and total control over your money in 2025. Early registration is happening right now with an exclusive bonus for acting fast. So stop waiting, click the link below, or go to retireintenyears.com, and I'll see you on the inside. Now, back to the show. So I want to invite you to consider this. Averages are a trap. Averages are extremely misleading. And the actual thing that matters is your actual return. I mean, just consider this. You might think that the market averages 7, 8%, and you're right. It does. It averages 7, 8%, maybe even 9% over time. But from 2000 to 2004, the average market return during that 4-year period of time was negative 0.71. From 2017 to 2021, the average market return during that 4-year period of time was 19.21%. Now, the biggest challenge with all of this is the fact that you don't control the outcome. So what I want you to consider is if averages are misleading, if averages are a trap, the way we shift you from survival to strategy is we stop focusing on average. We stop focusing on your rate of return, and we start focusing on the one thing that actually matters, your income. How much income can an asset produce? I tell you what, my friends, if you start looking at the game of investing through that single lens, what income can the asset produce? And then we can go a couple of levels deeper with that. How much income will it produce? How long will the income stream last? Does that income stream rise with inflation? And is that income stream impacted or not by taxes? And if it is impacted by taxes, to what degree? That's all that really matters. How much money ends up in your bank account? How much money can you spend at the end of the month without having to sell the asset? If you can start building your financial plan based on income versus net worth, based on cash flow versus average rate of return, your lens through which you measure and gauge success completely change. Because to be quite honest, does it really matter? I mean, let's say the average market return is 9% and you beat it and get 11% return. Does that really matter in the context of what I just gave you? Are you going to be that much closer earning an 11% return versus a 9% return to the $3 million portfolio net worth? The answer is absolutely not. You're just going to lose less dramatically than your neighbor. So my invitation for you is start becoming an outlier. I want to give you an example, okay? In statistics, it's a common practice when you're analyzing data, you're trying to find an average pattern. You're looking for what's the average income of people, what's the average weight, what's the average education, what's the average, XYZ driving record. You're gathering data from a large group of people, and with this large group of people, that data will average out to where you can find the median or the average among those people. Now, inside of statistics, if you have one or two outliers, someone who defies the average and is completely outside of the range of the data set that you're collecting, in statistics, it's actually a reasonable thing to do to eliminate the outliers. Now, why would I want to eliminate the outlier when I'm looking for average? Well, an outlier messes up the average data, right? If I have the average income of 9 people or the average net worth of 9 people in a bar is $100,000, and then I put in the outlier of Elon Musk, he and his income, he skews the average. He messes up the data and he makes the data irrelevant when I'm looking for average. So in statistics, you eliminate averages. In financial planning, Wall Street eliminates outliers. They tell you that investing in real estate is risky. They tell you that the people who become financially free must have been lucky. They must have inherited money. Maybe even they're evil. Maybe they're bad people taking advantage of people. They're greedy business owners. Whatever that is, they're going to eliminate the outliers to A, justify an average system, and B, to stop messing up the average data. If they include Elon Musk in people's average net worth when they're displaying what average people do in their retirement plan, you're going to say, I want that plan. I want Elon Musk's plan, not the average plan. So it's messing up the average data. But in reality, if we want to achieve something extraordinary in our life, step number one is walk away from the cult of the average. Walk away from this obsession with average returns amongst average people shooting for an average goal that kind of actually sucks. I mean, that's really the reality. You're not listening to this podcast because you're average. I want you to consider this. You've been above average, extraordinary in probably many areas of your life. At one point in your life, maybe you were an athlete. Maybe you're still an athlete today. Maybe you're in really good, extraordinary health compared to your peer group. Maybe your income level is high according to your peer group. Maybe you're an extraordinarily good parent. You've been successful in other areas of your life. I know this because I interact with hundreds of you every single year, and so many of you are excelling in so many areas of your life. However, you've been sold a bag of lies. You've been sold a bag of goods that when it comes to your money, you should be forced back into the box of average. And it blows my mind that the natural default financial advice that people are just automatically programmed with is go to school, get a job, put your money in the markets, and wait until you're 65. Even though the overwhelming evidence is it's not working, that's the path that everyone follows. So step number one is walk away from the cult of the average. Step number two is start doing the exact opposite of what the average people are doing. If an average person is max funding their 401k, run as far and as fast as you can away from a 401k. That is a system governed for average. If the average person is deferring their taxes, do the exact opposite. Eliminate your taxes. Be like the smart, wealthy individuals who just raise their financial IQ and understand how to use the tax code to their advantage. If the average person is saving 5% of their income, find a way to save 50% of your income, right? Make it enough money and control your expenses to where you can save an extraordinary amount of your money and still live a quality life. Do the exact opposite. That is quite literally what we do at the Passive Income Machine. I'll never forget growing up. I used to watch the show, the weekly show, Seinfeld. Now, I don't know if you ever watched Seinfeld. That show, crazy, funny, pretty much a show about nothing. But there was this episode where George Costanza, a short, bald man, lived with his parents at the time, just wildly unsuccessful in every areas of his life. He's sitting at the coffee shop with his buddy Jerry Seinfeld, and he glances over and he sees a pretty woman across the coffee shop. And, Jerry says, hey, you should go up and talk to her. And George immediately responds and says, oh, yeah, what am I going to do? Like, am I just going to go up and, say, hey, I'm short and I'm bald and I live with my parents? And he's like, women like that would never go for a guy like me. And what Jerry Seinfeld responds with is every instinct that you go with has got you to where you are today, and it's all been bad, right? So what if you did the exact opposite? Because if everything you're doing is wrong, then the exact opposite would have to be true. George thinks about this for just a minute, and he stands up and he walks over to this pretty woman and he says, hey, I'm George Costanza. I'm short, I'm bald, I live with my parents, and I'm unemployed. And the pretty girl looks at him and says, wow, hi, I'm Veronica, or whatever her name is. But look, here's the reality. If everything you're doing up to this point hasn't been giving you what you want, why not try the opposite? Why not try doing what the wealthy do and walking away from everyone that says that's risky, because you just get to choose your risk. Is the risk that you want to play a game where it's governed by averages, or is the risk that you want to play a game where you have extraordinary opportunity to become financially free in 10 years or less? Here's the one thing I can guarantee you on that side. You're going to fail. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to fail completely, but you're going to have to fail a couple of times to learn real financial lessons, to take your money back into your control, to take it away from Wall Street, to raise your financial intelligence, to understand and know how to invest for cash flow, how to invest in real assets, how to build a system that produces extraordinary results. So, my friends, hopefully this podcast got you thinking a little bit about the concept of average, because I think the biggest thing I can help you do on this podcast is raise your sense of awareness to reject average, to at least question average and say, look, if you want something greater than average, it's going to require you to think and operate different than almost everyone else. We as a culture are obsessed with this idea of average. Walk away from that average and become extraordinary. We in our community call ourselves empire builders because we're not just hoping for one day that we have a big enough net worth that we can retire to poverty. No, we're building an empire. We're building freedom. We're building cash flow. We're understanding that money is a tool to help us build and live a life that matters. If you want to join us, then join us to become an empire builder and walk away from the cult of the average. All right, my friends, that's a wrap for today. If you're serious, though, about turning everything we talked about into your new reality, there's only one place you need to be. It's the How to Retire in 10 Years Summit. This is your chance to learn exactly how to unlock financial freedom and build passive income in 2025. Early registration is live right now with an exclusive bonus for our early action takers. Don't miss out. Head to the link in the show notes or just head on over to retireintenyears.com and I'll catch you at the summit.